Is it crazy to own two copies of the same album? Or three? Or four? Or more? Guilty. Let's find out why. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome to Northern Revolutions. I'm Rob. Welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if you're new. Today, we're going to talk about why people own more than one copy of an album. I saw someone do this topic a couple weeks ago. My apologies, I don't remember who it is. I watch a lot of vinyl community videos, but I thought interesting topic because there are several albums that I own several of. And in fact, I did a video probably 2 years ago now almost about why I own so many Sgt. Peppers. And I will leave a link to that here or there or wherever one puts said link. You can watch that if you want. But I thought I'd talk about some of the many reasons that I might own multiple copies of an album. And I'll show some of them to you today. So I mentioned I have a ton of Sgt. Pepper. I'm a Beatles nerd, and that's okay. So I won't talk about Sgt. Pepper, but I picked another one of their albums that I own a fair amount of, and that's Revolver. So I've got this here, which is an original UK pressing. Not a first press, because the first press is only a few thousand of them out there. It's the withdrawn matrix. So that's a 606-2 matrix. Sorry, that's a 606-1 matrix. It was replaced the next day with a 606-2, which is what this is. So, I mean, very close to a first pressing, but I like having all of the original UK albums. So here's my copy of Revolver. And then, of course, because I'm here in Canada, I have original Canadian pressings. So this is my first pressing Canadian mono. And this is my first pressing Canadian stereo. Then I have my record of choice in terms of what do I actually listen to. And this is the 2014 Mono Remaster. This is the one I listen to all the time. The other ones are more for collectability than anything else, because this is the all analog remaster. So it sounds great. This is what I listen to. Prior to this, I listened to my Canadian versions because I just got the UK one probably within the last year or so, and it's in relatively rough shape. So it was my Canadian pressings until the Mono Remaster came out. Lastly, I've got the Super Deluxe that came out a few years ago. This is the one that has the new Giles Martin stereo mix, and it has a new Mono Remaster, which I never understood why they did a new Mono Remaster. This one's a digital one when they had the 2014 analog one. I don't know why they just didn't repress that, but whatever. And then there's a couple discs of session stuff, and then there's a very substantial book in here. So I really like the box set, actually. Although I have complained a little bit that the session stuff is a little bit repetitive. It's still kind of cool to have some of it. I don't know if we needed 2 discs worth of it because I'm a completist this year. I also do really like the Giles Martin stereo remix, to be quite honest. But as I said, I'm not an audiophile, so if I were to listen to the Mono Remaster and this one side by side, would I notice that big of a difference? Probably not. So when it comes to Revolver, I mean, I've got a few of them for collectability, and then one that I listen to. Sticking with the Beatles for one more example, is this. Beatles 1. This was their compilation, which came out in 2000. This was essentially, the definitive greatest hits package, basically. Their 27 number one hits. This is the original pressing from 2000, and this is the repress from 2015. The reason I bought the repress from 2015 is these are actually remastered. I believe they're all analog from the original source tape, so it's a different mix than the original 2000 pressing. Quick and easy way to tell the difference between the two. On the cover, the 2000 version Beatles are in like a sort of a pale red color, and the 2015 it's yellow. I mean, I don't listen to Beatles' greatest hits per se because I have all the studio albums, but if I were to listen to one, I prefer the 2015 remaster. So another reason why I might have multiple versions of an album is simply because I couldn't afford the original. Hold on for a second, I'll explain. This is Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory. I bought this easily 15 years ago, maybe more, like a long time ago. However, this is not an official release. This is pirated, counterfeit, whatever you call it. Not bootleg. Bootleg's a different thing altogether. But this is something that purports to be an original, but it is not. You could tell by looking at the fine print. It's shoddy printing. It's shoddy photo duplication. I mean, it's supposed to look like the original packaging, but you can tell it's very inferior. It's also on colored vinyl. A quick look on Discogs tells you it's not legit. But when I bought this, there was only one pressing of What's the Story in Morning Glory, and that's the original one from 95 or whenever the album came out. And they were already getting to be pricey, and there just, weren't a lot of them floating around North America at the time. So I couldn't afford an original, so I grabbed this counterfeit edition so that at least I had this album on vinyl to listen to. Then Oasis started to reissue their albums. So this is the very first reissue, and I don't know what year this came out, well over a decade ago. This was the first reissue of What's the Story in Morning Glory. There's been several since then. There's been like a silver one and whatever. So this was the first reissue. Obviously, this is the one I prefer because this is a legitimate release. But I have two of these because, the original one was because I couldn't get a legitimate one. And I've just hung on to it ever since. I don't know, for novelty's sake, I suppose, but this is the one I listen to. Up next is an album from one of my favorite bands. This is Blue Rodeo's Lost Together from 1991, I believe is when this came out. This was never released on vinyl in North America, despite the fact that these guys are a Canadian band from Toronto. This album was only released on vinyl in Europe. I think it was pressed in, I want to say Germany. Don't quote me on that though. European pressing nonetheless. Had a different cover than what the CD has. And I wanted this for a very long time. Couldn't find one. Pretty darn expensive on eBay. But it wasn't until actually I started doing YouTube that a viewer of mine that I chatted about Blue Rodeo in the comments, he sent me this. Thank you. Here you are. I very much appreciate it still. This is the coolest gift ever. He sent this to me so that I would have it because it was the only Blue Rodeo disc I did not have. In 2012, Blue Rodeo released the first part of their catalog remastered on vinyl, and this was one of them. This is what the album actually looks like on CD and now on vinyl. So I have both of these because I wanted the original, which is very hard to find, and then I have this remastered version. The remastered version is 2 discs. The original European is 1. They both sound fantastic, and I'm thrilled that I have both, and actually listened to both, believe it or not. Another instance I found in my collection of albums I have multiples of is when they come out with anniversary reissues. So this is an album, one of my favorite albums of all time, Nothing Is Wrong by Dawes, which I think came out in 2011, I think. This is the original. I don't think they're that common these days. I don't know that I've ever seen any since I bought this originally. Fantastic album. Really love these guys. Anyway, this album is one of my favorite albums of all time. To commemorate the 10th anniversary of this was reissued. And it looks like this. Obviously different color. It looks cool. What's neat about it is the sleeve is actually die cut. So that image that is printed on the original jacket is actually die cut into the sleeve. And you can change the picture in the front if you want. Similar gatefold. It's pressed on this sort of cream colored vinyl. And it came with a bonus 45, Strangers Getting Stranger and Rest Easy, which were not on the original album. So For me, this was a no-brainer because Nothing Is Wrong was one of my favorite albums. The reissue, completely different packaging, colored vinyl, bonus disc. I mean, no-brainer. This one makes sense to have a couple copies of. Sorry, I got to do it. Blue Rodeo one more time. My apologies. The debut, Outskirts. Love it. Fantastic. My favorite of their 17 albums. Came out in 1987. Fairly standard. You find these fairly commonly in used record stores and record shows and that kind of thing. I mentioned earlier in 2012, they reissued the first part of their discography. So they came out with this. 2 LPs as opposed to 1. But you'll also see it says remix because Greg Keeler, this guy, one of the 2 frontmen and songwriters, he went through and actually remixed the album. All the reissues were remastered, but he remixed this. And there's a few subtle changes that he made to make it feel a little less like 1987. There's one song that kind of had this sort of a cappella intro that he removed from the song, and it goes right into the song. He's made a few minor changes, but it just kind of freshens up this album a lot. So, I mean, again, aside from the fact I'm a Blue Rodeo completist, this sounds different than the original. So I'm glad I have both. And I think this is probably my listening version of choice. And the last one I want to talk about today, again, one of my favorite albums of all time, The Darkness, Permission to Land. I do not have an original of this album. Original pressing from, I think it was 2000-ish. Very expensive. Can't afford one. But this is an original picture disc from around the same time. And I've had this for 20 years. So I have this version. And then last year, to commemorate an anniversary of the album, I guess, they reissued it. There's a black vinyl version. This is actually the blue vinyl version. Had to have it because, picture discs are picture discs. And, again, I'm not an audiophile, but even I know they kind of not the greatest sound in the world. So I had to have a legitimate, proper pressing of the album. So the 2023 remaster. And then my amazing wife surprised me with the remaster box set, which is called Permission to Land Again. And this is, 5 LPs? So you've got the album on 1 LP. LP 2 is studio and bonus tracks. LP 3 is single and B-sides. Single 4 is live at Nebworth. And LP 5 is live at the Astoria. So this is awesome because this is the album and a lot of extra goodies. I love when there's extra goodies. So I have 3 versions of this album because the picture disc is the original one. The blue vinyl version is kind of the listing version, and this is the one with all the goodies. There you go, folks. There's some of my rationale for owning multiple versions of the same album. Is it rational? In my mind, it is. To a sane person, maybe not. Let me know in the comments what if you've got multiple versions of albums and, what's the reasoning for them, or if you think my reasoning is sound or illogical or whatever. I'm interested to hear. That's everything for me today, everybody. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the flip side. Bye.